Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
But speaking of advantages, Len.
I see a segue coming.
Speaking of advantages, so far, advantage one, I think, has to go to me because they did technically sign this MOU and this agreement, and they're currently under negotiations in Switzerland. Some say they're not going so well. I think that's a lot of propaganda. Some say they are going well. If you hear it directly from JD Vance, he says, look, it's an interesting time he said, what did he say? They're very interesting people to negotiate with, right? And you've got the ballyhoo and them walking out and the drama and all that stuff that's ensued behind it and all. But I don't want to overshadow the fact that UK's prime minister just stepped down and Trump called it out like 2 or 3 days ago. That's the 7th prime minister in 10 years. That country is not in good shape. And the fact that, Trump pretty much owned the G7 and NATO is, I think, or looks like NATO's at attention now and saying, okay. And you have the PM of Italy begging for a picture with Trump. To me, it's like you look at this and you go, what are these guys distracting us from? What's really, really going on? And Zelensky following him around trying to figure out how to get more money because that war should have been shut down. At this point, they're genociding their own people by letting this war go on. You're erasing civilizations and people that have lived on these lands for hundreds of years or thousands of years are being erased or refugeed away from their own lands. It's like gentrification happening there. So I know that's a lot, Len, that I just threw at you, but you're a 2 masters and a PhD, and I think you could swallow that. But so far, I think victory one goes to me. There is a signed agreement. Now we're in negotiation. The strait is supposedly open. The market says it's open because oil is currently trading at, let's see, Len. Oh, it doesn't even want to come in right now. Oh, $74 a barrel. What say you, sir? Hit me with your best shot.
Okay. So from the standpoint of rhetoric, Chris 1, Len 0. And what I mean by that specifically is that, yes, an MOU has been signed and both parties came, and from day to day, like even when this video comes out, who knows what the reality is going to be in real time. But as of the screening of this video, the MOU has been signed and both sides have agreed to move forward. Now, you talked about all the people like the Italian prime minister, and Macron and, kind of cheesing up to Donald Trump and all of this. Well, the reason why people are really around him like that is because the United States and the negotiation they're having between themselves and Iran is about opening up the Strait of Hormuz because their economic freedom and their economic prosperity is tied to that. And so because they know they don't have a real say in that, they understand that Donald Trump, being the person he is, he likes to have people around him that suck up to him, that call him the best, that call him the smartest, that call him the greatest. That's the signs of a narcissist. And that's who Donald Trump is. Regardless of how you feel about him or not, that's a fact. So now, but in terms of the two sides coming to an agreement, I am elated about that. Okay. Now, having said that, here's the problem. What the United States did in that MOU is an absolute disgrace because they gave all of the leverage that Iran prior to this preemptive war didn't have. And what I mean by that specifically is that the Strait of Hormuz was open for business. Cargo ships were going in and out. Oil was traveling freely. And the main crux of the MOU is to get the strait open, which it was already before the war started. So to me, I don't call that a victory. It's like if I ram into you in a car and then you have a conversation with the tow company and say, no, I want a better price for the tow company, and you get it for 50% off. Then you walk away saying, man, I won, but I just ruined your car. I put your car in a situation where you had to spend money and you're actually net worse off. So let's go back to the last thing you just said before you turned it over to me. You said, let's take a look at oil prices. It's $74 $64, and gas prices before the strait was even closed, before the war started, was in the 60s. And so now it's down from 100. So bravo, that's awesome. And I'm happy about that. And I'm happy the MOU was signed, but we can't call this a victory. I got a lot more to say, but I want to give you a chance to jump in and respond.
I think that you have to look at it and understand the long game with it. And here's how I process it. The main goal is to control, or is to get a radical player off the board, or to control, or to make a radical player play ball. And the radical player is Iran. Everybody knows these guys have been radical since 1978 or whatever it was that they took power, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The current regime. The regime that's run by clerics going back 1,000 years.
The Ayatollahs, since 79. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yes, the strait was open before this, but the strait was open with the guys that this country was going to play ball, and it's in an irrational state. No one knows what they're going to do, and they sponsor terrorism, and they sponsor groups and they actively, openly say they want to kill people, and they want to kill Israel, and they want to kill America since day one. Okay, so they actively been an aggressor. No one denies that. There was a nuclear program deal, right? The JC, whatever, the Obama deal. But that
JCPOA.
That deal was no longer active and in effect anymore, right? Because they violated it in all these other drama that was going on. So we know that. And we do also know that even with that agreement in force, in them violating it, they enriched uranium and got closer, since that agreement was signed, to having the ability to create a nuclear weapon. So there in itself, we got worse off, right? Okay. So everything's worse, right? You agree with me, right? Everything's worse. Okay. They got closer to making a nuke. They got closer to making nukes since that JCPOA agreement was signed. They have gotten closer.
Let me make a critical correction, and then I'll let you go ahead and finish cooking. Okay, so the JCPOA agreement, I read it, and I researched it, and I didn't go through the whole 160 pages.
You summarized it.
Yeah, so I went through and learned the general tenets of it. And so what it said specifically was that uranium should not be enriched more than 3.6%, and you can't have more than 300 kilograms of it. And so up until that point, while the JCPOA was not perfect, Iran had been adhering to the tenets of that agreement. In 2018, Trump came and tore it up. And then after that, that's when the higher levels of enriched uranium started to happen. So the real escalation in enriched uranium happened after Trump abolished the JCPOA agreement. So I just wanted to make that quick correction, but go ahead and proceed.
I'll have to look further into that. So touche for you on now for that, but I will look into that, because it's my understanding is that they violated that agreement from day one when they stopped letting the UN inspectors come in. And that was before Trump was elected. So,
okay. So there is some truth to that. So that's a good point that you bring up.
So they
didn't adhere to it perfectly because they were finding ways to avoid the IEA. I don't remember the exact acronyms, but
we'll find out what it is. We'll find out what it is.
The governing board that came to, monitor it, they were trying to find ways to work around them, but there was still a governing body in place to oversee it. So they were still able to minimize it. And then I'll turn it back over to you. But after Trump gave up the agreement, there was no governing body to watch them at all. So therefore, because they didn't have any oversight, that's when the real excess in production and enrichment started to happen.
No, I think that's when the excuse came, because here's how I see it. When we talked about this before, if your mortgage payment is $2,000.01 and you only pay $2,000 for the next 6 months, they're going to evict you. They're just, because you can't just say, oh, I almost adhere to the agreement. Because see here, that's the problem we're seeing again right now with the negotiations right now. These guys want to skirt by as much as they can. So you're seeing the same exact BS right now while we're negotiating with them. And that exact BS is what you just said. Oh, you can't be greasy about this. And I think that's where And because of that, that's going to even build more on my point previous when I go back, right?
Okay.
So it's my understanding that they violated that. So we're clear on that, but let me jump backwards into it now. Here's the problem. When Obama went in and did the JCOP, right? He signed it. He went in there and am I saying it right? The JCOP?
JCPOA.
Okay, the JC, the first agreement.
Yeah.
The first document. It doesn't even matter because it's a corpse at this point because they violated it. It's just like, here's how we should frame it. The first contract they violated, right? Obama,
Okay.
Obama came in and did it nice to them. So Obama was the commander in chief. I agree with his diplomacy. I think Obama, look, I'm not an Obama fan. All right. And I think, Obama did a lot of crazy things. And I think his virtues are not in alignment fully with what American virtues are. But at the same time, I think Obama was still a pretty decent president. I think he was still aggressive. He still did some military stuff. He was still, I think he proved himself, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was that bad. I know some people would shred me apart for that. And I don't think it was that bad.
We talk the topics. We're not here to put anybody as a demigod or anything. Look, Bush Jr. got lucky with 9/11 and then he threw that garbage on Obama. So Obama had a lot of garbage handed to him. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, when he came in office, he was in 2008, right? It was 2008, right? So, mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. He inherited all that nasty, the 2008 Great Recession. That wasn't really his fault. That was before his time. Okay. Mm-hmm. That was Clinton and Bush Jr.'s fault. Right,
okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, but here's the thing. When Trump goes in here and does this deal, that's the problem. There was no meat. There was no enforcement behind Obama's deal. Okay. And Iran knew that. Iran knew it's like having laws and then there's no police to enforce the laws. It's kind of like LA. Okay. Right? I mean, it's kind of like LA is like seriously, Kurt Russell, please come out of retirement and please refilm Escape from LA, but do it live action in LA today. And it's perfect for today. I'd love to see that. If you have never seen that movie, go see it because that's exactly what's going on in LA and New York right now. But I'm not going to digress. Okay. Sorry, Len. So that's what's happening right now. Trump goes back in and says, okay, we need to make a deal because we all know, and we're not going to argue that point, Iran is not responsible enough to have a nuclear weapon, right? They just aren't. It's like giving your child a driver's license or a gun, to be extreme. They're not trusted with it. They cannot be trusted. They've proven that they cannot be trusted. Okay. And by their words and their actions, cool. They made a deal, which means they at one point said, we won't do it. So we're going to give you another deal. The difference here is that Trump went in and said, oh, cool, here's a taste of what's going to happen if you violate it again. And now we're going to neutralize you, bring you back a little bit down to neutral. And now we're going to make an agreement with you. See, Trump showed them the enforcement first, then came in and did the agreement. That's what's different this time. We all know we need an agreement. We all know Trump. The main thing is Iran can't have a nuclear weapon because eventually what's going to happen one day, Len, is they're going to blow up the Strait of Hormuz. They are. They're just going to blow it up. And then everyone's going to go, what are we going to do? Iran did it. Well, we've been trying to tell you guys this since 1978. They were going to do this. You're scratching your heads on why they did it now. And then we all have a bigger problem because then the Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed for the next 100 years. And then good luck. But I am excited because U.S. has just overtaken Russia as the number one net exporter of energy. Go USA, baby. So Len, back at you. I just think this agreement has teeth, whereas Obama's didn't have teeth. Obama gave up everything up front with nothing in the back.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, let's break that down. Okay, give me some time because I'm going to go through your points. So you talked about enforcement. Okay, yes. First of all, the United States agreed to pay $300 billion of
The United
reparations.
States is not paying. No. It's not.
Okay,
the United
no.
States paying reparations.
I'm going to
It's
finish.
not
I'm going
US
to finish.
It's not
okay.
U.S. tax dollars.
The
though.
United. Okay, I didn't finish my sentence. The United States agreed to $300 billion of reparations. Now, the stipulation, and they're going to work out the details of the MOU, is they're saying that the other regional places will pay to help build up and, give them their construction companies and all of that stuff. I think it creates another pathway for the United States to come in, but that's neither here nor there. The other part of
I agree with you by that, by the way, because that's common. By the way, it's common.
The other aspect of that is that there was another $24 billion of assets that the United States has. And so they're releasing those assets and they're allowing the other part of it, which is to allow oil sanctions to go away, essentially. So before even any enforcement takes place, the United States, they're relieving them of sanctions, which is going to enrich the IRGC. And then they're providing an economic build up infrastructure, whether it's from other countries or from the United States, to come in and provide more money. And Trump complained about the $1.87 billion that Obama shipped in cash on a plane. But the overall benefit in terms of the economic enrichment to the country, the two between the JCPOA and the MOU, they're not even close. And then you talked about enforcement. No, let me finish. Go ahead. Go ahead at that point. But make it quick and I'll jump in. Okay, go ahead.
That's the key word you just said there. Investment. See, this is an investment and it's not US tax dollars. This is an investment, which means this is going to triple X, quadruple X return to these countries that invest in this infrastructure.
Okay.
It's an investment.
Okay, let's just assume that your assumption is correct. Here's the problem with that is that the one key word you said a long time ago before I started talking was enforcement. There's no enforcement teeth on here. They talk enforcement like, hey, if they violate the terms of the agreement, it's not even defined. So you might say, okay, well, they have 60 days to define what enforcement looks like. Okay, great. But as of right now, and again, if new facts emerge, I'll adjust my thinking. But as of right now, what is happening is that without enforcement, the Iranians are getting access to $12 billion and they're getting relief of sanctions without any nuclear enrichment promises. There's not anything. You can go through the 14 points of the MOU. There's nothing in there. And so then when you talk about the JCPOA not having teeth, the two documents aren't even comparable. Even the right-wing conservatives are saying the MOU falls far short of what it should. And so the reason why is because it is a concession to the Iranians. They get everything they want. They get leverage over the Strait of Hormuz. They get access to their cash that they had. They also get relief of oil sanctions, which allows them to sell oil, which is going to bring back an approximate $100 billion more that the JCPOA never gave them access to. Why? Because the JCPOA said that in order for us to relieve sanctions, you need to make sure that you keep the enriched uranium below a threshold. So what happened? We talked about this. They didn't adhere to that. So that's why the sanctions continue to happen. That's why when you look at the Iranian currency is amongst the worst in the world because their economy was thrashed because of the sanctions. And so what happens right now is Iranians, they have to be, especially the IRGC, they have to be pretty happy because when you go through the points of the MOU, there's nothing in there that has teeth with regard to their nuclear enrichment program. The number one thing that the MOU does is it opens back up the strait. Why is that important? Because the other countries and the G7 and the allies rely on that oil to keep their economy's good, and two, the overwhelming majority of people outside of Trump's base, which is about 30% of the population, disagree with this war altogether. And so because of that, the Republicans and the Conservative Party understands that the midterms will be a problem. So Trump feels an immense amount of pressure, whether he says it or not. His actions are proving that his number one objective is to pull out of the war and to get the strait back open. Those are his objectives. And that's the reason why the MOU is worded the way it is.
And I think that it's way too easy for someone to sit there and look at it and go, okay, this is what's happening.
That's it, man. That's it. That's it, man.
If you like, subscribe, comment. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Family Office.